this is the partnerships class, and so we we are Nick and Brie, and we serve on staff here at North River in that youth and family role. And this is Sarah and Michael Kodinsky, and they are kind of our main volunteers. They're just that really help champion our parents, and they have some college students and teen boys, and so they'll introduce themselves a little bit more. But we love, this is our favorite part of working in this role, is partnering with these guys. So we're going to talk a little bit more from like a youth ministry staff kind of place, and then they're going to talk more from a parents and volunteer kind of place. So when I was thinking about partnerships, the first scripture I thought of was just that Philippians 1 passage, because Paul uses that term partner a few different times, where he says in Philippians 1, in all my prayers for you, I always pray with joy because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now, being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. And I love that idea of just partnership in the good news. It's not just partnership in your work. It's just we're partnering together in bringing good news, to those around us. And I love that he, if you know anything about his time in Philippi, it wasn't a very long time that he was there. He was just there for a season. But I love that he says, now I'm confident that he who began a good work in you will carry on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. And, I know in our time in youth ministry, we only have these students and these families for a certain season. And so it's that same idea of saying, man, we really pray and we really are banking on our partnership with the other parts of the church, so that God's Spirit can carry on the work that we had a hand in and a part to play, that God will carry it on to completion until the day Jesus comes back. And so we're going to talk about partnerships across the board, but of course the most important partner that we have all this is God's Spirit. And that's the one sometimes for me that is lost in the shuffle the most. I'm talking about, who do I need to talk to in the middle school and the children's ministry, and I need to make this presentation to the elders about what we're doing, and I forget to that God is within me, and I can ask him anytime I want and consider his counsel. And I find for me that I'll pray around this building a lot of times, and there's just times where I'm like, I have 30 minutes, and I say, God, I'm just going to walk for the next 30 minutes in silence. I just pray that I got my roster here of the kids that are in our ministry. I'm just going to look at it. I just pray that you would bring ideas to my mind that I wouldn't otherwise have. And I find that if I just spend some time in silence and just listening and just being curious about what God's trying to say, that there's ideas that come that I just wouldn't have had if I just didn't set aside some time to ask him and ask God to lead me and guide me in that way. And it's a totally different Nick when I'm coming into an event, when I'm looking through, when I've taken a moment to prepare myself and to say, God, give me your eyes, lead me by your Spirit, and help me to love, the way that you would love. And of course, there's those passages, unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain, or talking about, man, we plant and water, God makes it grow, or that John 15, remain in me, I will be the one to bring that fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. When I'm connected to those passages, walking into every event, because those slip my mind so easily when you're in the day-to-day, kind of stuff. I think it helps me so much in those contexts.
Yeah, and when we were hired for this role with Youth and Family a few years ago, I came in ready to okay, what systemic issues do we need to change? Everything we do is going to be awesome all the time. It's only going to make people happy all the time. So I had to let go of that obviously really quick. But very, very causal and very perfectionistic in wanting to do things the right way. Not just look good, but I want to be on the right side of history with youth ministry. And so I and in that, I think learning to walk with the Spirit. I love that Galatians 5, that whole 13 through 26 passage. That's the most beautiful promise of if we are led by the Spirit, we won't gratify the desires of our sinful nature. So if we're led by him, we won't be giving into fear-driven ministry or perfectionist-driven ministry or performance-driven ministry. And so, for me, I can tell the difference between when I'm coming from that place of fear-driven versus spirit-driven. And it's usually the difference walking into maybe an event thinking, how successful is this midweek going to be? Versus, I love you. I love you. I love, looking at the kids just so full of love and hope. And so, I think even when we talk about partnerships, I don't know if you guys feel this, but that nudge, I feel like it's a spirit nudge, that spirit radar that you can feel in your heart when maybe talking about partnerships with, other of the church leaders or the campus ministry. Whenever I sense a sense of competition in me or sense a sense of we're not on the same team, it's that nudge like, no, Brie needs to take a step back here.
Right.
And we're on the same team and continuing to surrender to him in my partnerships.
I've always been really encouraged by the advice that people have given to me of, Nick, people don't really need your lessons, they don't need your cool event. The thing that's most helpful for them is your own transforming walk with Jesus. Because when you're coming from that place, when you're coming from a place of joy, of gratitude, that is what is going to overflow into others. It's not going to be your cool philosophy, that people get. And so, anyway, to me, that's just always a helpful reminder. Because if not, I honestly feel like in this role, I don't know if you guys relate to this, I feel like a dancing monkey, most times, where it used to be you can just get some pizza, have a good scripture, and that was kind of your role. Now you have to be a full-blown entertainer. You have to be a comedian. You got to be, an expert in culture, both for the modern generation and their parents, generation for, what they were going through, and the generation that's coming in a few years. And you got to be a theologian, that knows all that they don't have any scars, from your ministry and stuff like that. So all of a sudden you're kind of wearing all these hats, and you're like, I think that's why there's so much turnover sometimes in this particular role in the church, in a youth ministry, children's ministry role, because it's exhausting if you don't have partnerships, if you don't do it with God first and foremost, but you partner with a team to kind of do it together. And I have a little bit of that savior complex sometimes where I feel like I got to be the man to do it all and to kind of be what everybody needs, and that just exhausts me real quick. So we're going to go into basically two different partnerships. One is partnering with the parents, and one is partnering with the rest of the church. And we'll go kind of quickly on this. A lot of this is more just to jog thoughts. It's not expertise. It is we're trying out a lot of these things, but it's hopefully just to share some stuff that just jogs thoughts for you. I know it's helpful just being in the class and it just that thought leads me to this thought, and you kind of just it's just a place to kind of have a topic and just go around in your mind a little bit. So partnering with the parents. Our phrase for that is home is the headquarters. And we really believe that that's the primary place for spiritual growth, authenticity, conversations. They're not going to be coming to our house in 10 years for Easter. That's going to be the parents' house, And so my job really is to foster a lot of faith, not only in God, but also fostering faith in the parents, for the kid. And I was just talking in the last session about I've gotten to study and be in a relationship with all three of their boys. And I feel like one of my goals is to really lift them up and talk about how inspired I am by their parents, and try to never compete, or talk negatively or be like, yeah, your dad was a little bit weird. Sometimes you have to say that because Mike can be weird like that, sometimes. But
here's a standing call. Here's the good things I did this week. Tell them about it.
Yeah, exactly. But sometimes I feel like there's too much competition between the youth ministry and the parents.
Yeah.
And I hear this a lot where it's like, it's either sports or the church, and it's like, or I don't have my, parents just aren't bringing their kids anymore because they're so busy with these other things. And of course those conversations are needed and they're important, and we all got to figure out what's going to be the priority in our life. But I want to have more of that heart and that speech of my job isn't to, if a parent, I want to be the wind beneath their wings, The parents got a lot that's going on. I want to come in and support them in whatever they choose to do in their particular season. Support them with help. But also it's the difference between a kid coming back from their sports season and being like, hey, you haven't been around. It's probably, and being a little bit angry about it, or hey, it's finally good to see you again.
Right.
Versus what if they came back and it's like, dude, we've been praying for you for the last few months, and how did the season go? We're so excited that you're here, and we've been taking time, every week. We don't do this necessarily, but taking time every week to pray for all the kids that have band or have drama or whatever, because we're with you, So now they're walking in more feeling like they're welcome here, they're part of this team, and then working with the parents being like, hey, what can we give to your kid in this season, and going to them versus always having them come to us. There's that phrase that goes around a lot that I think is helpful a lot of times, right? If you build it, they will come. I think that phrase is helpful sometimes, but I also think a little bit are gone the days of just you're going to have an event and people are going to show up.
Right.
A lot of it now is we got to go where the people are, just like Jesus did, where he wasn't just like, hey, come to my thing. He was going where they were. And I think that's a lot of what we need to do with our parents is go where they are, support them where they're at, and so that they feel supported by us not in competition with us.
Yeah, and with that, we have an intern who's incredible, and she is one of the moms is in here, as you can attest to this. She is an annoyingly like, what's your kid's sports schedule? What's your kid's concert schedule? She tries to get as many as she can, and then we pass it out to all the mentors, just like, hey, if you're free this day, just kind of clarinet recite, whatever. But I think with partnering with parents, I think first of all, obviously with partnering with the Spirit, my prayer all the time is that the parents are filled with the Spirit, and that's just the constant communication between me and God for the parents.
Nice.
But I think even when mentoring a teen or studying the Bible with a teen, like just those practices of first time a teen says she wants to study the Bible, awesome, I give mom a call. If that's a good situation, I give mom a call. Hey, what's your advice? What do you need? And just being really intentional about, with the teen and with the mom, trying to continue to build that relationship spiritually. Because I view even those Bible studies as a time for them to get closer to their parents, and not just closer to God. And one of the first Bible studies I've started doing with teens is a Who's on Your Team kind of Bible study, where kind of walking through with the teen what relationships are you surrounding yourself with, not just friendships, but mentors and with your parents, and really empowering them to start, as they're pursuing Jesus, start being initiators in spiritual relationships with their parents. Go for a prayer walk with your mom. That's usually the challenge after every study is some sort of go pray with this, go pray through this passage with your mom, or go have a quiet time next to your mom, or that kind of just constant and telling the parents to the communication line is open. Please, if there's anything that you see or hear or anything like that. But yeah, I think kind of what Nick was saying too is we feel like the greatest service we can do to the families we work with is to instill faith in the parents, because I feel like we only have a 2-year-old, but to have teenagers is you are so at a vulnerable place of attack for the enemy to make you think that you're not a good parent. Your kid should have a different parent, or you should have a different, And so getting to say to them, man, you are your daughter's mom for a reason. Like, you are your daughter, you are your mom's daughter like God has put you guys together, and instilling that faith of you're doing great, we're in this with you. If we can be a squeaky wheel of encouragement, it's kind of love covers over a multitude of ministry programs. So that's how we feel. That's how we feel like our best. Usually, once again, too, if we're really spirit led, that's where I'm coming from. Is not frustrated. Oh, mom, I wish you did blank better. But like, mom, you're doing amazing. What do you need? So.
And I honestly feel that one dinner at a family's house is better than 6 months worth of my events, that I had, because you're in the home, you're talking, you're getting to know them, and you feel connected in a really cool way. And I used to feel a lot of the pressure of I have to kind of have all the, just have all the answers to different things. And I think I'm viewing my role now as more of my role is to be a fantastic listener and a fantastic encourager. Just to ask curious questions. I feel so loved when people just ask curious questions about my 2-year-old,
Right.
And I know parents feel loved when I just ask curious questions, about what's going on in their kid's life. And then to be a great encourager. I know Mike said that at something I was listening with him where he just talked about parents hear so much negativity about their kid a lot. If they're getting a call from their teacher or their coach, or it's usually not all the positive things. There's usually a lot of the negative ones. And so if I can be a voice of just coming in and anything I can find, even if it's the smallest thing that I can encourage their parents with, that I see in their kid, that I'm so inspired by, impressed by, or encourage them in their parenting of who they, I think that stuff just goes a long way. So that's really working with the parents. I know there's so much more we could talk about that. The Kodinskys will talk about that a little bit more. We want to move in more to partnering with the rest of the church, and there's so much you could talk about in each of these layers. We're more just going to mention them, and then we'll have a little time of Q&A, but just to kind of put it on your brain. Of course, it takes a village to raise a kid. Barna, who we got coming tonight, and other books talk about having 5 adult relationships, for a kid. That is really, if they have 5 adult relationships in their life, that's really a great indicator of that sticky faith, going on into their, past high school. And a lot of times that's not just the youth minister, it's not just the parent. One of the most influential relationships, for kids is their parents' friends. And so a lot of times when a kid wants to study the Bible, we won't usually quickly be like, oh yeah, we'll study with your kid, sounds great. We'll usually be like, hey, would you want to study with your kid? Because for me, I just studied with my dad, became a Christian as a freshman in high school. All my studies pretty much were with my dad. I really appreciated that. I know for some other families that doesn't work as well, you know. But we're always trying to foster that, you know, as much as we can. And then we're also asking the parents, hey, is there anybody in your family group that you'd want to kind of be in your kids' studies that's more your age or one of your best friends? You know, because we want to build that village where it's not just the youth worker, you know, kind of person. And so it takes a village. So there's, and one of the ways we're trying to equip the parents is like just helping them to see their village and then building that village around their kids and not relying on the youth ministry to build that village, but seeing us as a supplement that's going to provide a certain aspect of that, but then getting them to really kind of put that around their kids. So the different categories you have is partnerships with the middle school ministry. Sometimes I feel like middle school ministries get a little bit of the leftovers of whatever the teens didn't get. And I find that if kids come into the teen ministry engaged, they tend to stay that way. If they come in disengaged, they tend to stay that way. Yeah. And that middle school time is insane, you know, for kids. There's so much happening in that middle school era. And if we're trying to get them on the back end of that, I feel like we miss so many opportunities to instill habits and faith and core beliefs in that. So we really tried hard to build a great, put our best people in the middle school ministry, because we know that that's such a formative time for some of our kids. And then it goes to the children's ministry. We have monthly calls with Melissa, who you heard this morning, just to talk about ways that we can partner together more, and there's a lot we could talk about with that. We partner a lot with our campus ministry. We have, for all of our midweeks throughout the semester, we tap college students to come and teach those midweeks, just because we want them to just more overlap to happen with our.
And they're cool with it.
Yeah, and they're definitely cool.
They want to hear from us.
And it gives the college students, I think, a feeling of belief that they have something to teach, you know, as well. And especially for those freshmen and sophomores, maybe don't have as much responsibility, you know, in the campus ministry. And then with the parents, you know, having FaceTime with the kids and parents together to me is just so important. And so we have once a month we have a youth and family service that coincides. It's one of the benefits for us of having multiple buildings on this campus is we can have a parent and, you know, teen/middle school service where we try to do a lot of interactive stuff together, just to not feel like we're always taking the kids away, you know, from the parent, but we're trying to worship and pray and do things with one another. We have our team of volunteers and youth leaders and mentors, and then we try to partner as much as we can with other churches, and, you know, having Corey here as well. We, you know, having the camps and just different ways we try to partner together. And Corey and I have had some real deep talks and ways of like, how can we partner together more? I don't feel supported in this way. I do feel supported in this way. How can we kind of work this out? And that's been super helpful in our ministries and things like that. But and that's the cool thing about these conferences, is that we can partner, that we're partners, you know, in this room, and it's a phone call away, it's a text message away for all of us, which is such a blessing. And of course, elders and church leaders, partnering with them, and the Kodinskys will talk about that a little bit more. But as you can see, youth and family ministry is a lot more more than one group. It's more of like that Venn diagram of all those different circles kind of merging on one another that form that village that really produces that sticky faith, you know, in a lot of our kids. And you know, one of the most important things that you can have in that partnership is a parent couple champion that can speak from a parent's perspective. It's so helpful having the Kodinskys, because they're not talking from a staff place. They're talking from we know what the parents are feeling. We're feeling the same stuff, and they can be the ones to rally the parents. And it just comes from a totally different place than us trying to do that together. And so we wanted to turn it over to them. But is there anything else that you were wanting to say about?
Only that in the partnerships we have, trying to advocate for their partnerships as well, if that makes sense. So like with campus ministry, talking to the campus ministers and like those who have teens coming into the ministry, teaching them how to partner with the teens' parents coming in, if that makes sense. Because a lot of the campus leaders might not know how to call a mom and talk through that. So, so just being an advocate for partnerships as we try to do that ourselves.
Turn it over to you guys.
Thank you. Thank you all for your time and just for sharing this time with us, really. So about 20 years ago, we were in the full-time ministry. Sarah will share our background in a moment, a little more. But And there was a season where with our ministry staff, we studied out Ephesians 4, and I remember it forever changed, or it forever stamped, I should say, for me, kind of that's become my passage for what I believe is like the mission statement or vision statement, if you will, for building ministry, whether you're doing a full-time role or whether you're, a volunteer doing it with the time you have. Just a couple of snippets. We know the passage well. I'm not going to read it for time's sake, but it talks about Christ himself gave out these leadership type gifts, right? He gave us the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, teachers, right? For what? Well, to equip God's people for works of service, right? That's what leaders and those gifted with those gifts of leadership and so forth. That's why Jesus gave us those gifts, right? So that the body of Christ may be built up, we all reach unity in the faith, and then speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of him who is the head, that is Christ. From him, the whole body, right? Partnership, talk about partnership. The whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work. Like, that's our vision. I just kind of made up this term as we were writing our notes, like ligament leaders. Like, we're serving as ligament leaders. We're servant leaders, but we're ligament leaders, right? We're connectors. We're influencers within the body of Christ, whatever term, relates to you best, but a little more on our background.
Oh, yeah, so Michael and I have been disciples a long time. I was baptized in middle school, years ago, and he was in college, and then we served after college for about 5 years in the full-time ministry. In 2 of those years, we were privileged to get to be trained by the Arsenal to Boston in teen ministry, and that was very formative for us. And then, we spent about 20 years then, the past 20 years in the business world and raising our family. And so our family is, we have 3 sons. They're 20, 18, and 15 now. And the older 2 are disciples in the campus ministry here at North River. And our youngest is with Nick and Brie. And
will be Nick's single biggest Bible study challenge of his life. Because of how hard not to crack.
And so that's a little bit about us. We've always, Michael and I have always had the perspective that wherever our kids are, that is our ministry, because our kids are our number 1 ministry. And so, all through their younger years, we're very involved in the children's ministry. And then when our oldest hit middle school, we're like, oh, okay, this is our ministry now. So for about the past 9 years, we've really been invested in the youth and family ministry as our primary ministry. And so that's kind of a little context and how we have partnered with the Shoffs and before them the Macintoshes, and just really making this our spot to serve.
If there's a favorite mission statement of ours that we've, iterations over the years, the one I like is just the simplest, shortest one we ever had, which was, we're here helping parents to engage in the spiritual lives of their children. If you think about that statement, parents are the hero of the story. That's who we're here as a ministry, and we're parents too, so we're sort of receivers and givers, right? Like all of us are. But we're helping parents who are, again, the home is headquarters, the parents are in the driver's seat, so to speak. It's really the spirit, but spirit-led parents, right? Spirit-filled and spirit-led parents, and engaging in their kids' spiritual lives is the hardest thing. That's the hardest thing we do, right? We're all engaged as parents, and everyone's gonna feed their kids, drive them to school, make sure they do their homework, get them to practice, but those harder conversations, those non-reactions when something is blowing up and you're trying to really deal with the heart and not just, that's hard, right? It's the hardest thing we do. So there's this simple truth that we really come to believe, and it's a formula, if you will. Relationship equals influence. Like the level to which you have a relationship with someone is the ability to which you have to influence them. So it all comes back to relationship. Nick, scan it for a second. I just want to point this out. We're talking about partnering and mentoring and all this.
Yeah.
Can you see what I'm talking about here? It's on top. So, I dress cooler now because I've been hanging with Nick for 3 years, Before that I would have had like baggy, whatever. All right. So we're gonna just talk quickly about how we as parents partner with 3 sets of groups, if you will. Parents, our youth leaders, our volunteer youth leaders and or mentors, and then kind of we'll touch on church leadership real quick as well. So with parents, we, just a quick background on our church will help you appreciate what we were going through. So we moved here, Sarah and I, from Boston and our family about 16 years ago. At the time, the church was like 300 on a Sunday with visitors and members. And then right before pandemic, North River had grown to 14 to 1,500 on a Sunday. Pandemic, obviously, but and so part of how we dealt with that growth was we broke the church up into these communities, but the communities became by nature, because they're uneven, right? We had 2 or 3 that had really strong concentrations of teens and teen parents, and could build something within their local community, because that was the intent, was to say, well, let's build, let's do local, smaller. But there was others, so there was a disparity, there was just a disconnect. So we said, all right, we need to we want to create other influencers among parents. Again, we can't do it all, we know that, no one wants to do it all, but we want to raise others up and inspire them. So we started something that many of you do, and we all call it different things. We called ours a parent leadership team. So we tapped on different parents and said, hey, can you come join us for this? Do you want to be part of this? And this is what it needs to be. And we named it that with the word leadership kind of at the center. Because, again, very intentionally, we're like, look, that's what we're called to. We're called to lead, which is servant leadership, right? It means it's going to involve sacrifice. It's going to involve doing things you don't always want to do. But if we're going to, but we're trying to get other parents to care, and we know they do, but we're trying to rally and say, here's a place where we can all come together, support one another, build each other up to be, to do our part, right? To be those ligaments that work together.
And we're so thankful. The Shoffs have just always been champions of the family and of the parents, and so they were like all in. We're in this together, the PLT. And I come from usually more practical. Okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to accomplish with this group? And my husband really had the vision that our goal here, first, Sarah, is going to be that we knit the hearts together of the parents, and that we, build relationships and really multiply the number of parents who are engaged in the spiritual lives of their kids, so that they can be 11 throughout the church. And so it was an amazing time with those parents, and I feel like we really were able to see that happen. So we just went through once a month on Zoom this 7 Keys to a Teenager's Heart series, where we discussed parenting principles, and all got open and all shared, and it really did knit us together, and it really, I feel like, did increase engagement of the parents across the board, and then that multiplied out. So that was just a super encouraging thing to see what God did through that.
We had different parents lead those different discussions too.
They took turns,
really take ownership.
And one other thing with the parents that Michael and I have always really focused on is we are, from maybe our background or whatever, and partnering with the Shoffs, we're able to see a lot of opportunities and needs in the ministry that we could never get to all of them. But what we can do is be the tapping shoulders. We can be the connectors to the opportunities. And so we really take that responsibility over the years seriously. And what I've seen is that parents all really want to serve, but they don't know what to do a lot of times. And so it's up to us to really be able to connect them with and help them feel called, because everybody wants to feel needed, right? Yes. Hey, we really have this need here, and I think you'd be perfect for it. Could you do the this group with the girls, or this bring coffee and donuts or whatever, and then really engaging people in the opportunities that exist.
Yeah, and it's just a kind of an important reminder to us as leaders. We're all leaders here at this conference, in one way or another. So part of that building that relationship is you get to know who the people are on the other side of that. And what you realize is we can easily take for granted that not everybody has the same experience, mindset. Like, my wife's a kingdom kid, whether you like that term or not. We all understand it, right? So she grew up and she's like, I know what it's like to have strong teen ministries. I've seen what that's like. Other parents didn't experience that. Right? Most of the parents were not ones that grew up in the church. They're first generation, or whatever. But so not taking that for granted and understand that, again, not everybody has those same leadership gifts as us, the training that we've gotten, this and that. And so just telling people, hey, go just do this, just go get a mentor, we realize it takes a lot more, gentle hand-holding and intentional, guiding and walking with these other parents and to help them figure out how to take these steps. So just keep that in mind as leaders. Don't not take for granted that what what comes naturally to you is not what everybody else carries too. Mm-hmm. But that's part of what we get to share, part of what we have.
So our second category is the youth leaders and mentors, and the key thing that we just wanted to share there is we've really focused on the phrase mentor the mentors over the years, and really personally mentoring our youth workers and finding out, what matters to them, dating advice, career advice, just getting to know their parents, hosting their graduation party or whatever, investing in them. And we really believe that our youth workers should be attracted to the youth ministry. I mean, they want to serve the kids, but also because of the rich intergenerational support that they're going to receive there. And so building that out, it starts with us, and then us inspiring and pulling in the other parents and calling them to do that too. Don't just drop your kid off at the event. Walk in and make sure you connect with a youth leader and encourage them, or find out what their needs are. Are they having a hard week, So that is something that we've also focused on. building family, and then always, you know, using our home to always be also recruiting, you know, for lack of a better word, but recruiting for the youth ministry. It's a need, right? We always need more mentors, and as parents, we believe that we have a unique way to help with that. And I can Brie do a great job of it too, but just always pulling in young people and inspiring them and helping them feel called. Like, you would be an amazing mentor. Have you thought of that? And pulling them in to our home and family to inspire them in that way.
One of the things we did, we have 3 sons who both work full time. So years ago, when they were still younger and needed some supervision in the summertime, we would hire a Manny, a guy, brother, usually from campus, for a part-time job. We'd pay him to come walk with our kids. The only rule was get them out of the house, get them off the TV, go to the pool, go ride bikes, whatever, go, you know. Anyway, some interesting stories there, but we did it for about 5 or 6 successive summers. So now we've got these guys that, you know, they become part of our family because they're, you know, they're just hanging out. And there's what?
And they all became team leaders too.
Yeah, I mean, again, the influence, right, the relationship that led to that influence. So one thing we did with middle school classes when we were still doing them before pandemic, and we're getting back to it now, but was this vision of, okay, we're going to recruit campus students. We're blessed to have a campus ministry, not everybody does, but again, fill in the blanks. It doesn't have to be, it's whoever, right? It's people at the end of the day that we're going to ask to come in for a season and teach. And then the prayer that we'd be praying in the background was, God, knit their hearts to know, let the Spirit work so that there's a spark. Maybe that guy will connect with 1 or 2 of the boys in the class, or that sister will connect with 1 or 2 of the girls, and then, you know, at the end of the semester, maybe they'll get, we'll mention to the parent, hey, you know, you're really connecting with your daughter, have her over to dinner, and just creating opportunities for those ligaments to be, you know, to be encouraged. In the hope that when they graduated, if they really did connect, they might then come out and become youth leaders. Maybe not, you know, you don't know that, but that was the heart behind it, the agenda behind it. We put on these dating game things like the newlywed game, but for dating couples, or you can do it with married couples, but we would like intentionally go, okay, who are we gonna invite that potentially could all be great youth leaders? Well, yeah, are we being manipulative? No, we're being intentional. We're gonna have a great night. If none of them become youth leaders, we're not gonna think, you know, we're not gonna have a second thought about it in terms of, oh no, like, but it's just, but the hope is that, again, the relationships will be sparked, the influence will be there, they'll catch a vision for it. And just to show you like a fruit of this, over the years, the way we've been pulling young people in, and I was melting when Mike shared that story last night about the guy who did the wedding, and not trying to one-up him, but we've been asked to do 6 different weddings, like where we, you know, counseled couples and then have officiated their wedding over the years, just in North River. I've done 8 total, but 6 in the last, 15 years here, just out of that practice of drawing people in. That influence turns, you know, that relationship turns into that kind of influence. So one of the couples named their son after our 3 sons, like literally gave them each of their names embedded in the kid's name. It was mind blowing. Real quick, lastly, and then we'll turn over to discussion and responses, is with the church leadership, with the elders, with the evangelists, like we see our role as like we want to be advocates, right? We want to have their ear, but again, how do we do that? Relationship, right? Because relationship equals influence. So I would make a point to get with the lead evangelist, you know, on some regular basis. I've had several elders that I've built relationships with, would go to lunch with, so that again, they know me, they know us, and so that when we do bring up concerns or ideally not so much coming with the negative, like Sarah said earlier, but with the, or was it Brie, but basically with solutions, you know, but they know who we are, they know what we're pouring in, and even knowing how much we serve, because they know us well, also creates influence. They know that, you know, we come with some leverage, if you will, because like we're pouring ourselves out, but we can use some help. What about this? What about that?
Yeah. Awesome. We have about 10 minutes until we break for lunch, and so we just wanted to open it up. You know, I really always appreciate, you know, what Mike and Kristen shared last night of really what this is we're better together and we make a great team. And we're doing it all together. It's just better, you know, with those things. And so a lot of this is just things we're practicing, maybe a jog of thought or you know, a question or something like that. But yeah, any thoughts or questions in our last 10 minutes together?